Welcome to Absurdly Nerd. It's just me this week doing episode 5 recap and review for HBO's The Last of Us. As you can see, Eric's not here this week because of the schedule change. But I didn't want to skip a week, so I'm going to go ahead and do a short but concise review and recap of this episode. So this is the Henry and Sam episode. If you've played the game, then you knew where this was going. For me, having played the game didn't hurt the impact of the moment, but I am curious how it would have been if I had never known it was coming. But we'll start from the beginning. So all of the stuff leading up to the big moment felt like a great change from the game. Like, not that it wasn't already stellar in there. I loved Sam and I loved Henry in the game, but I felt like if you just copy and pasted that, it wouldn't be special. Changing Sam to being deaf was a good move in my opinion, in terms of giving it a separation, basically. I think both of the actors did a stellar job, like especially considering Sam's actor is actually deaf in real life. It was super impressive for him to deliver it the way he did. And Henry is going to be in a lot of things. The guy that plays him, I don't know his name at the moment, but he's going to be everywhere. You can trust that. Overall, I really, really liked this episode. I feel like it conveyed all of the emotions the game, had to show. It was different for sure. Like, you can look at the lighting of these scenes. They made a big decision, turning the big fight into a night scene. Like, I think it worked in their favor. It was really cinematic, whereas in the game, it was kind of another action scene. Like, it was good, but it was there for the sake of action. I feel like the ultimate moment at the end was spot on. Like, the emotion it delivered was there. It was the same as how it felt when I first played the game. I think for major fans of the game, this episode is probably their favorite so far. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I just feel like the scenes they chose to lined up so well without being like cheap copies. They benefited the game. I think every episode has done that, but this one especially really pulled from it. The being in the underground, settlement felt very on par for what I felt whenever I went through there, and getting to see some more of that and them discuss the backstory of these people that had lived under there. That was a good, like, expounding on the situation. The decision to ramp up that fight, like starting with basically a shot for shot recreation of the truck running into the building, was really cool. And then the fight was just so much grander, and it went off the walls really quick. Seeing that bloater come out of the ground was an exciting moment. And I think it looks so cool. Like, I thought the CG might be a little, like, at times in the early episodes, it felt a little obvious, the CG did. But the bloater didn't look bad. I mean, you could tell it was CG because it's a show, but it wasn't like cheap CG by any means. And then they added in a new type of enemy with the child clicker, which it's not hard to see why that wasn't in the game. It's not a good look to, have to fight that. But I think it was really creepy and a cool, like, new thing that I hadn't thought about. Like, kids were turning into zombies too, but we never really saw that in the game. That was a cool addition. If I have a complaint with this episode, it has to be the villain didn't amount to much. This 2-episode run, she was just there for exposition for the reason that Henry was on the run. Like, she just didn't seem to really serve the level of characters that we've seen so far, like from the game and the show both. Not a bad performance. The actor did a good job. I think she was just kind of written in, and you could tell. Some of the action sequences in this are insane, and they're what you remember from the game. The executions where you get caught by a bloater, like Perry was grabbed. Like, Perry was grabbed in the background, and it was look like whenever Joel gets grabbed and, face ripped off. It was gory. They didn't focus on it too hard. So far, the show has chose to, go away from the gore a bit, which I'm okay with. It doesn't need to be gratuitous. It needs to be implied. One of my favorite sequences was seeing Joel up there, almost said Pedro, seeing Joel in the tower or in the building sniping down, because you can remember that was a very iconic moment, playing and covering fire for Henry and Sam. I think they recreated that in a great way, especially with all the chaos going on. There's a lot of choreography going on there. And the behind the scenes, seeing the actors actually come out of the hole and everything, it made me think about how much of an ordeal that had to be to coordinate everybody together. The cinematics of that shot were really cool. The lighting was so well designed. It was a beautiful scene, really, beautiful chaos. But of course, it brought us to what we thought, or what those who haven't played the game thought was, a happy ending, a reprieve in the motel. They get to hang out and, be happy that they survived and go on this journey together. And some people actually thought that maybe it would be different from the game. Maybe like episode 3, there's a happy ending for these characters that you grow to love. But no, it turns out that Sam still got bit. Sam still turned. They did a little bit of a misdirection with Ellie putting the blood on there. I mean, I didn't believe it for a second, but there got to be some people that had a little hope that maybe this will do something. I mean, it was just a childlike thing that she wanted to do whatever she could to save him. So it was a good little addition, I think. I don't think it was a smart thing for her to fall asleep after, 'cause in the game she did not know that Sam was bit, so it was understandable she would just go to sleep, trusting they wake up and have their day. She knew he was bit. I wouldn't have fallen asleep, personally. And she also told him she wouldn't fall asleep, so it was a little, come on, Ellie. Well, my first thought watching it was like, why hasn't he attacked her yet? And then I thought about, well, he's deaf. Like, that was an interesting take. Like, these zombies, these infected, take on the ailments of the people that they take. Get out of here, Iron Man. But so he didn't, and until she touched him, that's what set him off. And then the scene of her him chasing her through that doorway, like, it was shot for shot like the game, and intense like it. And then all the stuff with Henry and his decision making there, I didn't expect him to pull the trigger like that, even though in the game I knew he did. But and this was a little more, he didn't think about it. He just knew he had to do it, and man, it was a moment for sure. Like, if I'd never played the game, that moment would have been like tears, but I was kind of prepared for it. But that definitely would have brought some tears like it did back in the day. And of course, it leads to Henry turning the gun on himself. And I think Pedro Pascal did a fantastic job acting this scene. The true fear he had and the true attempt to convince Henry not to do it. That was a heartbreaking moment. Like, it had already been heartbreaking to see Sam. Henry just giving up was crazy. And then, of course, the show closes with Ellie putting the pad down, saying, "I'm sorry." And that was a tough one to see. I don't remember how things parted at that part in the game, but I think this was a good emotional end to this episode. And it keeps you wondering, like, how they're going to press on after that. Like, I always try to think of this as someone that has played it and someone that hasn't. And like, because it's fun. There's so many people that have not experienced this story. So I like to imagine their reaction to these things. Is it just another show to them because they don't have the connection that I do? I don't know. I'd like, if you've never played the game, leave a comment how you felt watching this show. I think the overarching goal of this episode is to foreshadow some of the events that will transpire later. I won't spoil it for those that don't know what's going to happen, but there's foreshadowing in this episode pretty heavy. This is my favorite episode, and I'd have to give it a A+. Other than a somewhat unnecessary villain, I mean, she was necessary, but underwhelming, I'll say. I think it was perfect. I think the pacing was great. I think the adaptation side of it was the best we've seen yet. I mean, episode 3 was really good, but that was really different. That was really adapted. I think this episode was like more nuanced. Nuanced is the word I would use for it. Like, it was a nuanced adaptation and kept the things that I really loved from this part of the story. But yeah, that's my grade. I give it an A+. And next week, Eric should be back with me, and I don't know, maybe Cole. We'll see how things go. But I just wanted to go ahead and get this one out of there. I know it's a little late, but y'all be sure to let us know in the comments what you think. Are you still on board with this show? Do you think it's doing a good job? Like, what would you compare it to as far as video game adaptations that you think is the best? Other than that, consider liking and subscribing, and come back next week.